Hello everybody and welcome to the video. In this video we'll be focusing on Luigi Pirandello's absurdist drama, 6 Characters in Search of an Author. Whether you're just looking for an overall summary, or if you're looking for specific quizbook clues, we'll be looking at both. This play is packed with meta-drama, lots of plot twists, and some interesting clues. As well, we will talk about a few sensitive topics that occur in the plot. With that, we'll jump right into the summary. This starts pretty meta, so we open up on a stage within a theatrical company, which is led by the manager or the director, depending on translation. And he and his actors are planning to rehearse a play called Mixing It Up. So right away, mixing it up is a clue that shows up commonly, a little bit later in questions generally. But the thing about this is it draws on Pirandello's real work, which is titled The Rules of the Game. So yes, Pirandello is in fact writing a play in which inside that play, people are rehearsing his play. Yes, exciting stuff. That's how the absurdists usually are. So it starts off with the leading man, the actor, complaining about having to wear a ridiculous chef's hat, and he's beating eggs as the character of Leo Galla. So again, we are in this meta play starting off. The character of the prompter reads from his script that Leo Galla is beating eggs with Philip. And the manager instructs the actor that he represents the shell of the eggs he is beating. That quote right there comes up plenty of times, and this is showing him as the embodiment of reason, and he bemoans the lack of decent French comedies available. This is another clue that comes up with the decent French comedies. Soon after, the rehearsal is interrupted by the title characters, these 6 characters of the father, the mother, who has a real name of Amalia, which comes up, the stepdaughter, the son, the boy, and the child, who is a little girl. They all arrive to the company, bathed in tenuous light. The father explains that they are unfinished characters whose original author abandoned them. Makes sense with the title. They are 6 characters in search of a new author. They are driven by a desire to live eternally, noting that a fecundating matrix allows fictional entities like Sancho Panza and Don Abbondio to live forever. They ask the stage manager to act as their author and stage their real-life tragedy. This Matrix and Sancho Panza, Don Abbondio clues show up multiple times as well. So the father begins by telling the backstory to the director/stage manager. So he has a son with his wife. He encourages the mother to leave with the clerk. That causes 3 more children to come out of that new relationship, the stepdaughter, the boy, and the child. But after the clerk's death, the family fell into poverty. Intrigued, the manager agrees to draft the story into a play and orders the prompter to take down the shorthand while a property man sets up the stage. They start by recreating the scene of their trauma, and the father asks to set up a dress shop owned by Madame Pache. Madame Pache is a very important character within the story, and will come up multiple times both in the plot and also in clues. The main one being to lure Madame Pache onto the stage. The father has the actors hang up their coats and hats on a rack, which is called a vulgar trick. Madame Pache is a heavily accented brothel owner who speaks in an interesting pidgin English or some sort of French. And the opening line she gives comes up as well. Gentlemen laugha atta me if I trya best speaka English. She wears a pair of scissors dangling from her waist on a silver chain, and she appears after this vulgar trick. The stepdaughter reenacts how she was forced to work as a prostitute for Madame Pache after her mother took a seamstress job. This is due to the poverty that their family was experiencing. And during a visit, the father, who claims he was guided and possessed by a demon of experiment, unknowingly hired his own stepdaughter. He bought her a hat and asked her to remove her mourning frock, and also left a vile, pale blue envelope, which contained 100 lira, which is currency, on a small mahogany table. Just as the father was about to engage with his own stepdaughter, the mother walked in and cried out in horror. The stepdaughter insists on faithfully reenacting the scene, demanding a yellow sofa or divan with large flowers instead of a green one provided by the stage crew. When the professional actors try to reenact the scene, the characters laugh at their artificial, flawed imitations. The act ends abruptly when a machinist drops the stage curtain onto the stage. Next, we go on to the final act, which transitions to a garden setting complete with rockery, plants, a fountain, and a pool. The son, one of the characters, bitterly refuses to take part in the production, expressing disgust at living in front of a mirror that freezes us with the image of ourselves. That quote shows up in clues sometimes. And the son tries to leave the stage, though the father points out that he is irreversibly bound to the story. Soon in the scene, it turns tragic. The child, the little girl from the second relationship of the mother, ends up drowning in the fountain, and the boy, who is mute, watched his own drowning sister, and he pulls out a revolver and commits suicide. As the shot echoes off stage, a fierce debate breaks out between the actors and the characters over whether their deaths were real or only a pretense. This pretense line shows up often within clues. Outraged and thoroughly bewildered by the chaos, the stage manager calls an end to the entire affair and shouts one of the most famous lines in the play, "I've lost a whole day over these people," and that is how the play ends. Thank you for listening to the summary. We'll go move on over to look at some specific questions and go over the clues again. Okay, so here we are at the database. Once again, I have the difficulty set from regular high school to regionals college. I have the 6 characters in search of an author, and I've set it to 2012 for ease. So let's look through a few of these. Okay, so immediately we have the chef's hat clue, as well as the French comedies. Next up, we have the Demon of Experiment clue. Next, the classic Madame Pache clue, which we'll see many times more. Finally, the girl dying in the fountain, and the brother committing suicide. Finally, we end up with the mixing it up clue, and then the names of the characters. Next up, once again, Madame Pache clues, good French play clues, mixing it up clues. Everything is pretty similar here. Once again, Demon of Experiment, Madame Pache, the child drowning, etc. Okay, let's see if these are all very similar. So up, we have a much more difficult question, difficulty 8, but here we have the beating of eggs clue. Soon, also down here, we have the line of Madame Pache here. Here, Pace, 2019. We have the Demon of Experiment clue and the Sancho Panza Don Abbondio clue. And then finally, we have this manager with the lost a whole day over these people. These are all pretty similar. Madame Pache, etc. Let's go a little harder question here. So once again, a French comedy clue, as well as the envelope clue here. Next up, let's go to one more slightly harder question. Let's look at this one. So here we have that pale blue envelope again. We have the mother named Amalia, and Madame Pache, etc. here as well. Most of these are very similar, with a lot of common clues that we went over. Once again, something like the beating of the eggs. And we'll look, our last question will be here. Once again, we have the egg clue, French comedy clue, mahogany table clue, and then finally ending with a lot of the same clues here. So as you can see, we've gone over most of the common clues that you can find in Power. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please put them in the comments. I also hope you learned something today, and hopefully you get more powers.